Howdy ho, let's rock and roll! Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/EntitledPeople. Alright, this story's called Karen Declares War on My Parents for Cutting Down a Tree on Their Own Property. I, 25 male, have been living away from home ever since graduating from college. My parents both retired recently, and last summer they decided to use some of the money they'd saved up to finally build their dream retirement home in New Orleans, where they've been living for the past 10 years. I come from a very tight-knit family, so I still talk to my parents every week. And they were so excited when they said they'd already picked out the location where they wanted the house built. It was an empty lot in a nice neighborhood where a house had been demolished not long before due to age. And the previous owner, who was pretty wealthy and owned numerous properties around the city, decided that the lot was worth more without the house on it. Anyway, my parents snapped it up as soon as it came on the market, but not long after construction began, they realized that they were building their dream house right next door to the lair of a wild Karen. The trouble started when my parents had to cut down a large oak tree that sat in front of the lot. It was a real beauty too, one of those big southern live oaks, and although they didn't want to, they knew they had to remove it because it was in the way. That's a shame. No one likes to cut down a big, beautiful tree, and believe me, if there was a way to avoid doing it without impeding the construction, my parents would have taken it. So they called a tree removal service, and the tree was soon gone. I can't read it. Well, a few days after the tree had been cut down, my dad was on the property talking to some of the construction guys and making sure everything was going smoothly. He was going back to his car when he saw a woman in her late 50s walk out of the house next door and head to her mailbox. My dad, let's call him John, is a pretty chill and laid-back guy who likes to be on good terms with everyone. So he walked over and introduced himself. "Hi," he said, holding out his hand. "My name's John, and my wife and I are gonna be your neighbors once our house is finished. I just wanted to come over and say hi and introduce myself. It's nice to meet you. What's your name?" Karen glanced at the extended hand, then looked up at my dad and glared at him. "My name is none of your business," she snapped. "I'm not gonna shake your hand because of Brovid, and even if there was no Brovid, I still wouldn't shake your hand because you people ruined my life when you cut down my tree. I still can't believe how selfish you are. You should both be ashamed of yourselves." My dad was taken aback by this and pointed out that Karen already had a nice big oak tree in her backyard. But Karen ignored him and stalked back inside her house. She never explained why she thought she was the owner of the tree that had been cut down, not once. And whenever my parents asked about it, she refused to answer. I guess it's just one of those things that we'll never know. Like what really happened to the lost Roanoke colony or the fate of D.B. Cooper. Okay, well, as far as Roanoke goes, Occam's razor dictates that the simplest solution is often the best one. And in this case, Croatoan was the name of an island I think it was south of Roanoke, okay? And that's what was carved in the tree, and it was partially carved in another tree. So, my theory is that they either went of their own volition to Croatoan, where there were natives that they had established friendly relations with at the time, and that's why there were several accounts of European people being seen with these Croatoan natives. Plus, there was a bunch of European-inspired things, as well as stone houses, where the Croatoans usually made their houses out of wood and mud and stuff. But there are also accounts of people being, like white Europeans, being enslaved by them, and stuff like that. So my theory is that they probably went of their own volition, carved the little name of the island in the trees, but things went sour for them, at least. And the natives enslaved and or killed them. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure D.B. Cooper was soft. But anyway, My parents met some of their other neighbors later that day, including a nice elderly couple who lived in the other house next door, Karen's. And when my dad told them what happened, the neighbors said Karen was like that to everyone, and no one in the neighborhood liked her. They also said that Karen had been nasty to them for a long time, and they were in the process of selling their house because they couldn't stand living next door to her anymore. Karen soon began living up to her reputation. For months, whenever my parents would visit the house to see how the construction was coming along, she'd find something to complain or confront them about. One time, she said the construction workers were being too loud and threatened to call the police, even though it was the middle of the day. Another time, she said that the construction company was using illegal immigrants as cheap labor and threatened to call ICE and have the whole project shut down. My dad mentioned this to the owner of the company, and the owner sent Karen a formal letter threatening a lawsuit if she tried. I don't know if there were any actual grounds for a lawsuit, but the threat must have worked because ICE never showed up. Oh, and then there was this time she tried to have my parents' car towed for illegal parking when they parked by the curb of their still unfinished house. The first my parents knew about this was when the tow truck showed up, but the driver took one look at where my parents' car was parked and told Karen he'd send her a bill for wasting his time if she called him again. I could go on. Karen did everything she could think of to try and interfere. She was absolutely relentless in her crusade to avenge a tree she never even owned. Happily, the house was completed despite her best efforts. Pathetic. And my parents finally moved in not long after the holidays. Ew. My mom told me later that she caught Karen watching them bitterly from her window as they were taking some of their boxes inside. She was concerned that Karen might keep going and try something else. But I guess Karen was too busy wallowing in self-pity over her failure or something, because things were actually quiet for a while. But a few weeks ago, things changed. New Orleans has had some really bad weather lately due to the winter storms that are battering much of the southern US right now. Hey, I experienced that. It was pretty cool. And one night, one of those storms was so powerful that it knocked over the tree in Karen's backyard. It missed falling onto her house, but it didn't miss falling onto her shiny new her shiny new Jaguar and crushing it like a beer can. Yikes. According to my folks, Karen didn't discover what happened until the following morning, when she came outside and saw the pile of scrap metal that used to be her car. She threw back her head and let out a primal scream, like something out of The Exorcist. She had to pay a tree removal service to get rid of the tree, then she had to pay for a tow truck to get rid of the car too, and then she had to get a rental car too. Karen put her property up for sale and moved out not long afterward. Everyone in the neighborhood was glad to see her go, and my parents enjoyed watching her drive off into the sunset from the front porch of their amazing new house. Badass, man. I like the idea of like old people building their dream houses and stuff. I had these really sweet neighbors back when I lived in Rocky Ford, Colorado. John and Phyllis. John unfortunately passed away. He was a cool guy. They were both really sweet. They threw my mom her baby shower when she was having my little brother, and they had built their forever home right next to ours. It's really cool, up this hill. They were like next door grandparents. Yeah, I miss them. Y'all remember that Justin Bieber song? It starts like, ooh, ooh, oh, oh. Just knock it up a couple octaves. It's called Love Me. It's stuck in my freaking head. Anyway, entitled woman demands to be checked out during 2-minute silence. This is my first ever post on Reddit. I'm so excited! This story takes place on Remembrance Day in the UK several years ago. For those who may not be familiar, thank you, I'm not. Remembrance Day is a nationally observed Memorial Day that takes place on the 11th of November each year. And a big part of the memorial is 2-minute silence at 11 a.m. Is the number 11 like significant to the UK or something? Okay, not gonna lie, I was about to make a little wisecrack bashing the UK just for little poos and giggles, but, you know, I'ma respect the holiday. Remember that. Okay, no, sorry. On this particular Remembrance Day, I was working as a shop assistant. At about 10:55, a tannoy announcement was made saying that at 11 a.m. the tills would close for 2 minutes so staff could take part in the silence. When 11 a.m. came, I was stood near to the till being operated by a new member of staff who I'll call Elliot. Elliot was 17, very sweet, shy, and non-confrontational, and he had only been working there for a few days at this point. He was about to start serving a customer, who we will call Entitled Woman, when the tannoy bleeped and the background music stopped playing, marking the beginning of the 2-minute silence. Elliot stopped what he was doing and lowered his head slightly. A lot of people do this, almost like tipping an invisible hat to someone, as did almost everyone else in the vicinity, staff and customers alike. Except you, Entitled Woman. The following conversation is a paraphrase of what was said, as this was several years ago now.
Excuse me, I'm waiting here.
It's the 2-minute silence, miss.
I am in a rush. Just scan it so I can go.
She was speaking super loudly. Not quite shouting, but it sounded so loud in the otherwise silent shop. The other customers were glaring at her, but she didn't seem to notice or care. I can't. It's a 2-minute silence.
I don't care. I'm in a rush. Scan it now.
Elliot looked almost in pain with how embarrassed and unsure of what to do he was. I quietly walked over and spoke to the woman. Miss, he will not scan you out until the 2-minute silence is over. You can either wait 1 minute or leave.
I don't give a crap about your 2 minutes, whatever. I need to get to work and you will serve me right now.
The last part of this was barked directly into Elliot's face, and he honestly looked like he was about to cry. I whispered to Elliot to sign off his till and go take 5 in the break room, and I'd take over. Entitled Woman was not happy and shouted at him as he walked away.
No, he's got to serve me. Come back here.
I get into position behind the till and wait for the last 30 or so seconds of silence to finish.
For love's sake, just scan it and go.
I just ignored her until the tannoy bleeped to signal the end of the 2 minutes and the music began to play again. With my brightest customer service smile in place, I silently signed into the till and proceeded to complete the most painfully, glacially slow transaction I've ever done. I picked every item up and turned it all over looking for the barcodes, pretended some didn't scan so I had to type in the 12-digit codes manually that I keep typing in wrong and having to start over. So clumsy! And scanning things twice so I'd have to go through the void procedure every few seconds. Entitled Woman looked so annoyed. She scolded me for being so slow and so bad at my job. In the end, it took me about 5 minutes to complete the sale and send her on her way. If she hadn't been a complete toilet, she would have been out of there in 2. First of all, good guy OP for stepping in for Elliot and making him feel cared for in this really hostile freaking work. I mean, it's not really the work environment. You get what I'm saying. Second, cool story, bro. Alrighty, this story's called Entitled Son-in-Law, or Sister-in-Law, is angry that her father is spending her inheritance. 2 years ago, I got married to a wonderful and intelligent woman. She's a surgeon. Her father is a very successful artist. He's done well and earns a great deal of money. In addition to my wife, the oldest, he has 3 sons, Larry, Mo, and Curly. Oh, I was like, these are weird-ass names. It's the Three Stooges. And a daughter, Sil, short for Silvio from The Sopranos, the youngest. My father-in-law, Phil, is in his mid-60s, still going strong and enjoys his work and doesn't want to stop for another 5 to 6 years. He has enough put away that he could live comfortably the rest of his life. My sister-in-law is the youngest at 22 and in university as a pre-law student. Her father pays for everything: tuition, books, an apartment, car, fuel and a food allowance, etc. Damn. The two of them fight constantly. Phil is divorced. Both parties were having affairs. Man, artists like to party. From Syl's mother. Well, Syl was already upset at Phil as he took her credit card away after she tried to buy a last-minute business class seat home from Greece. Another entitled story. Does she have gyro? Well, even though it's been 4 years since they divorced, she hasn't quite accepted that her father is okay to see other women and is very catty about them. Phil has an older brother, Jeff, who was the consummate bachelor. Well, Jeff's finally decided at the age of 67 to settle down and tie the knot. Damn. They're having the ceremony in a stave church in Norway where their family heritage dates back to. Hey, I'm like a third Norwegian. Scandinavian, but same thing. It's part of that area. Anyway, sorry. But when Phil announced that he was going to fly out to his only brother's wedding, Syl lost it. She started yelling that he was spending her inheritance and it was wrong. Oh my god. She launched into this huge tirade about how he went to Canada, New York, etc. Half the trips were business related. She then tried to convince her 3 brothers and my wife to back her and that he needs to not go to save her inheritance. She actually, I kid you not, said,
"You're spending my money!"
Then threw a small tantrum when nobody would back her. My wife took her into the other room and sternly explained that the money belonged to Phil and none of them had any right to it. She seemed to calm down and came up with a compromise. He could take her too and they could spend a couple weeks in Norway. That would be cool. This started an even bigger argument as Curly thought it was a great idea and he could go too. Larry, Mo, and my wife tried to point out that due to the church size and remoteness, only Phil was invited. Everything ended when Syl drove off crying because we were being mean to her and her father was going to make her poor. If you're wondering what I did during this little escapade, I stayed my happy self in the kitchen next door preparing dinner where I could listen but not be in the line of fire. Smart. But I would probably do that, then I'd try to find like the best opportunity to make this really badass entrance and make a stupid sarcastic joke, and then everyone would either forget about the fight or they just collectively get mad at me. And then you're thinking, wow, Zach, that's such a nice thing to do. But no, as soon as they're mad at me, that's when I'll be like, Syl took a dump in the pressure cooker. It wasn't me, it was her. And then boom, the heat's off of you. Oh, and I forgot to mention, make sure you take a dump in the pressure cooker beforehand so the evidence is there. It's a perfect crime. Oh, but anyway, Phil, you're a cool guy except for cheating on your wife, but hey, she did it too. Also, cool guy for being nice to your kids despite the fact that at least one of them's a brat. Alright, this story's called Guy Insisted Repeatedly That I Return the Favor of Him Tipping Me $2 and Buy Him His Next Meal and Drinks at my job. I'm a bartender. Honestly, I hate my job, but that's another can of worms that's not relevant here. Anyway, yesterday I had a dad and his adult kid come in and sit where I was serving. Also obligatory sorry for formatting. I'm on mobile and not great with grammar due to dyslexia and other issues. So the dad and the kid come in and sit at the bar and order some beer and ask to pay as they go. Not a big deal. About 4 beer bottles in, they ask where one of my coworkers is and explain they want her because she usually pays for half to almost all their drinks and food once they realize I'm not gonna pay for them as well like she does. Sadly, she isn't in, so I'm stuck with them as they start getting more and more upset, demanding because I won't pay for their things and sit and chew me out while insulting me with a few sexually charged comments thrown in by Thek for good measure, all for not paying the favor forward. Their words. Like, thanks, but I make $2.50 an hour plus tips. You're not doing me any favors by giving me a $2 tip and sexually harassing me while demanding free things when I'll be fired if I snap at you. There, I just did it for you. Before they left, they called me a dirty whore as they hit on me and laughed as the dad slapped the son on the back like it was a good joke and told me I was crap at my job and they would ask to not get me as a server next time and even shoot out my boss who happened to be friends with these men about how they need to get better employees. The entitlement like that was just astounding, and it was a horrible experience. I've dealt with a lot of crappy people working, but wow. Honestly, I know this is not Am I the Butthole, but I gotta say it. OP, you're the butthole in this situation. You should have paid it forward, man. $2. That don't come cheap. You know how much that costs? At least, like, if I'm doing the math right, probably like $10, right? Okay, now, I hate that I have to point this out, but I'm not being serious. It was a joke. It's called, I think that was a form of satire. Yeah, kind of, in a way. Anyway, OP, you have my sympathy. Now go and be happy and not have a job you think is crappy. Damn, I should freaking Eminem who? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.